All right, today we're going to review a little bit of James Rizzi. We've been studying this artist that lived in New York City and created these super fun and funny cities. You've had pictures to look at as you create your city. I wanted to showcase a few students from second grade that are working and doing a great job on their city. I love the faces they've added, and some of them might still need to fill in a few windows. Look how full that one is and so cute. They've done a really nice job filling in windows, features, and look, they've filled up their whole paper. So that makes it really interesting of a composition. A lot to look at. This one is done really nicely in dark. She drew all of her shapes nice and big and clear that we can see them. And so what I want to show you right now is just to point out, make sure each of your buildings has been filled in with windows all throughout. If you want to add any extra details for the roof or face features, I even put a little ground line coming from behind my building with a tree and a sun. But we're going to start adding watercolor to this. Now we drew it with oil pastel so that when we do add color, the colors will not run into each other because the oil pastel creates a stop or it resists the paint. Oil pastel is made with oil. We're going to use watercolors. Keyword is water. Oil and water don't mix, so it will resist it. So remember, watercolors, you don't want to mix your colors. You do want to wash your brush between each color that you use. All right, I am going to start maybe down here on the ground. So I'm going to start with some green. I'm going to twirl on my paint. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And see how I can see a little bit of white? This paint's starting to run out, but there's still plenty to make the color I need, okay? I am going to try to stay inside my lines, but this oil pastel is going to definitely help me stay in those shapes and spaces. And right here, I added a little bit of texture with my oil pastel on the tree, so it's going to resist where I paint over it. Okay, let's see, maybe while I have my brush green, I might go ahead and use some more green somewhere else. Maybe I want to make up here green, the crown, the rooftop of this one. It's always good to use as much of one color as you can because it saves time in washing your brush. You wouldn't want to do one little spot of yellow, wash your brush, one little spot of blue, wash your brush. That's a waste of time. See how much ground you can cover. How about some yellow? So this paint, look, it's running out, but I'm going to make sure I'm twirling right on top of the paint, not just the plastic. I'm going to fill in my sun. And when I get to the edges, I'm going to slow down to try to go nice and slowly around. Okay. And then again, while I have yellow in my brush, I might fill in some of my windows. And you might want to go a little bit slower than I am. As your art teacher, I've had lots of practice with painting. But I want you to be very careful and slow in painting your details so you don't go outside your lines. Now, this is something really important. At this point, I don't want to paint this building yet, just in case my paint from my building ran into my window color. When two colors are wet, they blend really easily together. Water doesn't know what color it is, so it's going to just run right together. So what I'm going to do is pick a different color to work with and move on to a different building. And while I do that, the yellow and the green will be drying and I can come back to that building. Okay. I don't really like that color. I don't want it to be so dark. So look what I'm going to do. I'm going to find a paper towel that has a clean spot on it, and I'm going to pick it up and soak it up. Sorry, the lights were going out on me in here. And look, it erased most of the color. So now, maybe I'll use red instead. That's a much prettier color. I want it to be bright and happy. So now I'm going to come in. I'm going to add my paint. Remember, trying to not go into the window. Now, I want to be very careful I don't cross into that green in case it's still wet. Have to be very careful. I probably should have waited a little bit longer to paint next to that wet green. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky with all the windows. You want to be very careful. You might want to hold your paintbrush up on its tiptoes. Do you see how the paintbrush is pointing right up at you? It's like pointing to the ceiling, so it'll get a lot skinnier line. So you can see that it'll go right between the windows. And I'm not accidentally getting red in my windows. Uh-oh, so I got a little bit into that building. So again, use a clean spot on my paper towel. I'm gonna pick up that red, and I got most of it, which is great. See, even art teachers make mistakes. The trick is you gotta make it look like you meant to do it, or do what you can to fix it. Now, one thing I want to show you, do you see how it's a little bit darker right here? I want to spread my paint out so that I don't have any really dark splotches. I want to make it all look like the same color, nice and even. Okay, ta-da! So I finished my red. So now I would rinse my brush and move on to another color. You could probably test and see if your yellow is still wet. I see a little bit on my finger that's shiny, so I'm going to go on to another building instead of painting this one. Maybe I want to go ahead and paint windows. Maybe I'll choose another bright color and add in that. Okay, so I would keep filling in the whole thing. You might not get this finished painting in one day, and that is okay. I would rather you take your time, be nice and neat, slow down, relax, and enjoy the painting. And you can always finish next week if you need to. One thing I do want to encourage you, if you're going to do a sky color, I would wait and do that after you've done your buildings, because you want to make sure your sky doesn't end up being the same color as one of your buildings. We want it to be contrasting enough so it stands out from our buildings. Okay, so you kind of get the idea. I'm going to let you get started, and I'll show you my finished product later. All right, thanks for watching.